Hi guys, and welcome to my latest batch of mini reviews where I basically review 7 films in the time that it would normally take me to review just one. I mainly like to stick to lesser known films for this particular series, one-offs, things that are not part of big on-running franchises. All of the films I'm going to be talking about today I saw on streaming platforms like Netflix and Shudder, etc, etc. So it could be you have access to these films and you just don't even know it. Are these films good? Some of them actually are really good, some of them not so. It's always a bit of a crapshoot when you put on an unknown film. You never quite know what you're going to get, but some of these films I'm going to be talking about today are absolutely worth watching. I'm not going to be ranking these, I'm just going to be talking about them in the exact order in which I watched them. So with that in mind, let's dive in and we'll start today with this one. Many years ago, I watched a really dodgy B-movie starring Michael Caine called The Swarm. It was full of people doing this, pretending to die in a haze of special effects of bees. Very cheesy, full of one-liners from Michael Caine. I thought this film was going to be a remake of that, but nothing could be further from the truth. This film has nothing to do with that Michael Caine film. It just happens to have the same title. This one doesn't even have bees in it. It's locusts that are the focus. So our story centres around a woman who runs a little farm somewhere in France. This is a French film. She breeds locusts and then tries to sell them to whoever will buy them. But the bottom of is sort of falling out of the market of this particular thing. This family are going through a lot of poverty. They're really struggling. This woman, by accident, discovers that if she gives blood to the locusts, then that will make them multiply quicker and she can expand the farm and then she will prosper. But blood is not easy to come by, so she ends up kind of self-mutilating, and this brings health problems and it causes a strain with her family and especially her teenage daughter and with her new potential boyfriend who lives nearby. So there's a lot of sort of family drama that goes on in this. What I like about this film is the fact that it shows you a lot of real world stuff. It presents the characters as being very real people. You know, there's poverty here. There's a lot of horror going on before we even get to the horror of the locusts. And films are doing that more and more these days, I'm noticing. You know, they're showing more genuinely believable scenarios in terms of the characterization, rather than just having the main protagonists be the same 19-year-olds driving around in cars that have been bought for them by their parents, and the only thing they've got to worry about is whether they get laid at the prom or not. I've covered a film in my previous mini reviews video called No One Gets Out Alive, which took a similar sort of approach. You know, there was the horror of the main character's poverty, and then there was the horror of the main film itself. Same sort of deal here. This is a very good film. It's a bit of a slow burn. There's a lot of drama to get through before you get to the main horror, but it's absolutely worth it going on this journey. The French have done it again as far as I'm concerned. This is a really solid watch, and I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. This is a Dutch film, so we're going very European today to start off. French film, Dutch film. This is the closest thing I've seen to a Hereditary clone since Hereditary came out. So the story is about a family living in a house in a quite isolated sort of spot on the outskirts of town. There's an excavation quite close by, though. There's a team there digging up bones and things, and they disturb something supernatural that shouldn't have been disturbed, really. And then for the longest time in this film, strange things start to happen, deaths occur, people start becoming possessed and acting violently. You're never quite sure watching this what the gist is of what's going on, but that works to the film's favour. It is like Hereditary to an extent. Family secrets eventually get revealed. It turns out there's been something wrong with this particular family for a long time. But it was only after watching the film, actually, that I made the connection to Hereditary. It's not like I was sat there all the way through this thinking, oh, this is just like Hereditary. Some people might not even agree with me that this film is like Hereditary. You just have to see how you get on with it. It's a very creepy film for a lot of its runtime. I'd say that The Swarm is the more satisfying overall package, but this one has more of a creepiness factor. There's more horror in this, more deaths, more scenes of imminent danger. So if you just like horror very pure, you don't want a slow burn, maybe this one will be more for you. Although it is still quite slow, I'd say, for a lot of the first half at least. So you'll still have to have some patience with this. You won't get a lot of answers until very, very late on with it. But I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5, so just a fraction down from The Swarm. It is a Shudder original, I think, so you might need Shudder to watch it, but it's absolutely worth 90 minutes of your evening. It's good. This is today's standout film. I always have one, and this is it for this video. This is an absolutely delightful little film. So it's about a girl who has just recently joined the Park Service. I guess the film must be set somewhere like Oregon, maybe, that type of area where there's lots of woods and forests, and it needs a whole group of park rangers to properly keep it tidy and well policed and stuff. So this girl, she goes out one day and her job is to sort of put leaflets up on signposts and make sure the litter's not too evident. She's got to keep all the hiking trails in nice working order kind of thing. I don't know. And she takes a backpack with her with various supplies in it, like a flashlight and first aid kit, etc., etc. And she's dressed like a park ranger. But she gets out really far this one particular day and she finds a dead body, and then she gets lost because she hasn't really done this job very long, and for the rest of the movie, really, she's just got to try and survive. But where did this dead body come from? Is there a serial killer nearby, possibly, or was this person killed by an animal tap? Because there are supposedly wolves and bears in this general area. So a lot of this film is just this girl on camera. There's not a lot of other people in this movie, but it's a lot of fun watching this. I really enjoyed it right from the beginning. The opening titles and the music are just absolutely on point. They just drew me in. But mainly this character, this girl, whose name I can't actually remember, she's just absolutely wonderful. She's not your typical hottie who is, got it up there and she's going to go on to be a doctor. And she's a bit of a klutz, actually. She's really clumsy. She's late for work in the very first scene, and then she seems to get lost very easily. Her head's sort of in the clouds a little bit, but she's kind of a typical sort of 18, 19-year-old. She doesn't really know a lot about life, but she just feels very real, and she's very, very likeable. I instantly felt like I desperately wanted to see her survive this movie. It's a very clever film. It has an ending that you can't really see coming. It's very mysterious throughout. You never know what the threat is for the longest time. It's directed with style. There's some really interesting shots. The film looks gorgeous. There's this one shot where the camera sort of pulls out from the forest into space almost, and you just see the girl's campfire getting smaller and smaller. I was convinced that we were then going to see another campfire like barely 200 yards away or something, a bit like in Road Games where Jamie Lee goes for a pee and it turns out the killer's just over the nearest hill, something like that. It's just a very, very stylish movie. I love indie films like this, which just hit home, even though they probably didn't have the biggest of budgets. So I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5. I say that with a slight tinge of unease because I suspect a lot of people might not like it as much as I did. It is a very patient watch. It seems to be a theme today so far that these films are slow burns for the most part. This film is quite slow for quite a long time, but it's only really after you watch the film and you've digested the whole thing, you realise just how satisfying, how good it really was. So I really like this. It is my standout film of the video. I instantly went on eBay after watching this to see if there was a Blu-ray copy available. Sadly, not in my region. If you are in Region A, though, I think you might be luckier on that score. It's on Shudder. I don't think it's exclusive to Shudder, though. I think it just happens to be on there. So from the standout film of the day, we go straight to the dud of the day. This one's absolutely awful. It's another film that's on Shudder. I think 4 of the 7 films I'm talking about today I did watch on Shudder. This one, though, is dreadful. I'm not just picking on it because it's an older horror film from the 70s. I'm usually very, very passionate about older horror films. This one, though, Jesus Christ. It's about this weird town in the south where everybody seems to be as equally murderous as each other. And every time a car full of people drives through the main town street of this place, they get stopped and the mayor says to them, "Hey, it's our 100-year centenary anniversary. You get to stay and be our guests." So these people in the cars, they do stay. But all that means is that they're going to be sacrificed as part of the festivities. But this film's just got nothing to it. Like, it's just basically people being tortured and killed. There's no suspense. Like every now and again throughout the story, one of the people in the group of 6 will get pulled away and tortured and killed, and that's it. There's nothing they can do about it, and then eventually we move to the next person. So I'll give you an example of the sort of kills you'll get in this. There's this one woman who's tied to a platform, and there's a boulder up above, and this boulder is connected to a rope and then a target. And the townspeople all start throwing rocks at this target. And the minute that one of the rocks hits this target, it will cause the boulder to fall and crush this poor woman who's lying on the platform. But it's just mean and nasty. It's like this woman can do nothing about this situation. She's just emotionally tortured for like a minute until the rock finally falls on her. And literally every death is like that. There's nothing these people can do about it. And it's just not fun to watch. It's really boring. And these villains are so irritating. They're like the villains from some of the least good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. You know, they're all kind of jumping around with really just irritating personalities. People doing this, and like you just want to slap them or, well, kill them, actually. That would be preferable. And that's another bad thing about this film. You don't get to see the villains die for the most part. You don't even get that satisfaction. It's really annoying. And at the end of this, there's like a big twist, but that just makes the film worse. Like the film was already bad by the time we get to the end, but the twist just makes it even more bad. It's awful. And last of all, I've got to mention the song that's like the main theme of this film. It plays a lot at the start and again at the end. It's like a Deliverance type song with banjos and things, and it just gets in your head and stays there, but you don't want it to stay there because it's just an awful song. Like days after I watched this film, I was hanging the washing out in the garden and this song's still in my head. I'm like, go away! I didn't like the film. Get this frigging song out of my head, please. So yeah, this was not a great experience. Do avoid this film, please. It's just a sleazy, cheap gore fest from the 70s that's got absolutely no substance to it whatsoever. 1 out of 5. This is my second favourite film on the video. It's a Norwegian film, so carrying on our Euro theme. So we've had a French film today, a Dutch film, now a Norwegian film. And is it a coincidence that all of those films are pretty good, whereas the American ones are a bit more hit and miss? Now, I'm not knocking the Americans. They do produce a hell of a lot of films. You can't always get them right. But it does seem to me that with European horror films, they do hit the sweet spot with quite an impressive degree of regularity. So in this one, we have a couple of sisters who have grown up living near those Norwegian fjords. Have I said that right? And they've gotten into diving, even though the water is freezing in Norway. When this story begins, however, life has moved on somewhat. The oldest sister has gone off and got married and moved to Sweden, and the younger sister works for some kind of shipping company. She's doing a diving job. She's about to move to the Philippines. But before she does that, the family has a little reunion back home in Norway. The mother's got a bit of a cough. She's not doing very well. But the two sisters, just for old time's sake, decide to go on a dive together. And of course, they get into trouble, this being a horror film. One of the sisters, even though she's very, very competent as a diver, she has an unlucky moment where a big boulder sort of frees itself from a cave wall and lands on top of her, pins her to the ocean bed. We're not way out at sea with this film, though. We're very, very close to land. So the sister who's still free at this point, for much of the rest of the movie, she's got to try and get her sister free. She's got to go and get more air tanks from the car and bring them back so her sister can carry on breathing. But this is only a short-term solution. Long-term, she's going to have to figure out how to get the sister out from under the rock, and so the pair of them can survive. Now, I almost skipped by this film when I noticed it on Amazon Prime. That's where you'll find it. It just sounded a very simple setup for me. I thought, how can they sustain that scenario for a whole movie? It does sound more like a short. But this film is not static. It really keeps moving. No sooner have we dealt with one little thing, we're then having to deal with some other problem that the sisters have to face. We're constantly moving from issue to issue. A lot of this film is not just sat in the same situation, treading water, no pun intended. It really does move along. It really gripped me, this film. It reminds me of 47 Meters Down, a film I really like. Now, I still prefer 47 Meters Down, just when I think of that the ocean in that film, how expansive it was with all the sharks and stuff. This film is a little bit more self-contained because one of the sisters is sort of permanently trapped, but it's very, very good. The movie has definitely made an effort to get the technical details right with the diving and stuff. You know, the bends is a threat, and when it comes to what equipment they're using and stuff to do with the air tanks, it seems like the writers have really researched their stuff, made the movie very realistic, and I love the relationship between these two sisters. The character work in this film is just as good as the actual horror stuff. It's pretty terrific, actually, the arcs that these characters go on throughout the movie. And at the end, I was a really, really well-satisfied customer. So this being my first ever Norwegian horror film, I really liked it. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. And if you're into sort of aquatic horror, then you definitely can't go wrong with this one. This is the final one today, which is on Shudder. I think it's only just come out, actually. It's a really, really weird film, this one. So we pick up the action with this guy driving along in the middle of nowhere, seemingly. He stops at this restroom, goes in there, and he gets locked in by accident, I think. And then it turns out that in the far cubicle in the corner of these toilets is a god, right? He's got a physical form. He's all kind of tentacly and stuff. And somehow he's in this cubicle, stuck there, an actual god. And he strikes up conversation with this guy. And after a while, it becomes clear that apparently the world is about to end. And the god is really concerned about this. He can't stop this event from happening. But with the guy's help, this normal man who has just walked into the toilets, they can somehow save the world together, which involves the man cutting a bit of liver out of himself and giving it to the god. And with that piece of liver, he can save the world. Seriously, I'm not making any of this up. Now, it does take a while to get to this point. There's loads of faff in this film, messing around, lots of conversation that goes nowhere. At one point, some other dude walks into the toilets and the god just absolutely obliterates him, like blood and guts all over the place. It's a film which is basically 90 minutes set in toilets. It's really grimy and weird. I didn't like it, I've got to say. It's just a little bit too offbeat and bizarre for me. It's not comedic. It's just weird, you know. It's got a twist at the end, which made the film worse for me. I really don't like it when twists just get shoehorned onto the end of movies just for the sake of giving you another kind of ooh moment. I didn't see that coming, but if a twist is going to be there at the end, it's got to make sense at least. Otherwise, just don't have it. But at least on this occasion, it wasn't a case of I was really enjoying this film and then, oh my God, why did they put that twist in? Now it's ruined my experience. It was more like I wasn't really enjoying the film anyway, so I don't really care that they've got a bad twist there at the end, but it really didn't work for the material for me. Now, this film is not bad on the same scale as 2000 Maniacs. I think a lot of people will actually like this. I just think it's not my personal taste. And actually, if you go on Shudder, like every film beneath the description has got some reviews and people have marked the films out of 5 and stuff. And it was actually, on this occasion, those little review things that made me watch this film, because there's loads of 4 and 5 star reviews for this. People seem to actually like it, just not me. So it's not a complete loss, or it probably won't be for most people. I'm going to give it 2 out of 5, but it's just not one that I want to dwell on past this, doing this clip today. It totally not my thing, but make your own mind up. So our final film today is one that's available on Netflix. This is an adaptation of a Stephen King story, or maybe a novella. It was possibly even his kid who did this one. I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain that it's from somebody who is part of the King family. I just can't say for sure which. Probably Stephen himself. So this is about a brother and a sister who are driving through Nebraska one day, somewhere like that. It's one of those areas where there's just tons of cornfields as far as the eye can see. So this film begins a lot like the film Children of the Corn. That is this film's distant cousin, I would say, definitely. Now, these two characters, they stop the car for some bullshit reason, and from inside the corn, they hear a child's voice calling out. So being idiots, they go straight into the corn, and they are immediately lost. And straight away with this film, you realise that there's something supernatural going on whereby people can't leave the cornfields. So if these characters try and retrace their steps, they'll just be magically transported deeper into the corn, sort of. I'm not actually sure it's corn. It might just be like big fields of really, really tall grass, hence the title of the film. I don't know, actually. It does feel more grassy than corn-like, but make your own mind up. So we know that there's something weird going on with time and geography in this movie, but the movie sort of plays its hand a bit too early. It shows you exactly what's going on with that, like from the very first minute they go into this grass or whatever. Whereas something like the Blair Witch Project, it's a lot more subtle. You know, those three campers in that film, they were walking for a long time before you, the viewer, puzzle out that they might be going back over their own steps. You know, the reveal of that is done kind of gradually, whereas in the tall grass, it's all kind of given to you straight away, so you know what the deal is. Now, eventually, it turns out that there is a killer in this place, this area, and there's also like a mysterious dark rock with a weird benevolent force in play. It's not a bad film, this. It just never quite rises above the average for me. It's got a nice dark atmosphere and it is kind of tense at various points. I don't know, it just didn't quite hit the spot for me. It was always kind of floating along at that very sort of average level, and like I said, it just didn't push itself forward into being something better, but it's all right. If you're stuck for something to watch, you might get something out of it. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. It is very close in quality, I think, to the original Children of the Corn film, which is the only film that I've seen from that franchise. If you take all the very best ideas from Children of the Corn and all the best ideas from In the Tall Grass, put them together, you might have a really, really top-class horror film. But as it is, you're just kind of left with two really averagey ones for me. I do really like the original short story of Children of the Corn. I've never read the actual written story of In the Tall Grass. I could imagine that it's better than this film, sadly, but hey-ho, you might have a different opinion. This one's all right, though, 2.5, like I said, and I will leave it there for today. So that was my latest batch of mini-reviews. Absolutely, Body from Brighton Rock, or Body at Brighton Rock, is my favourite of these, closely followed by The Swarm and Beneath the Surface, and I can't emphasise this enough, avoid 2000 Maniacs. Right, I will leave it there. I will leave you with this I'll leave you with a few pearls of wisdom, actually. Don't walk into a cornfield in an area with poor mobile phone coverage. Don't go diving in Norway, and do not raise locusts for a living. Until next time, goodbye.